just to give a brief background, I have a background in IT. I did startups back in the beginning of the millennium during the dot-com era, the where everything was accelerating very quickly. And I used to be, I think back then I was quite materialistic and my focus was on career and you know, achieving all the great things that I figured would make me happy. Not that I wasn't an unhappy person, but I was certainly looking for things, out there. And then my who's yeah, she's still my wife. My I guess she wasn't my wife at that time, but my now wife Maria, she bought me a book. We went to this holiday in Thailand. We were sitting on the beach, and I was reading this book that she had bought for me, and it's called Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. And this was like a bomb going on off in my life because suddenly everything, things I've kind of been thinking my whole life and had an interesting interest in, like, I've always been interested in science, but religion, philosophy, and all these things that they kind of came together as one thing. So that was my introduction to Buddha Dharma, and we ended up traveling in Asia for about 6 months, and we went to all these different meditation retreats, and eventually we ended up at Kopan Monastery, which was the monastery in Nepal founded by Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, and founded the FPMT, which obviously Thupten Oberling is a part of. And yeah, so I that's when I kind of found my heart tradition. But I've been inspired by many different Buddhist teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, and not only Tibetan, and a lot of Theravada masters, and so not only Tibetan teachers, but that's where I found my home, and this was some 23 years ago, maybe. So I've and as also as part of this, finding Dharma and being interested in, and really seeing that the biggest part of the equation was actually what was happening in my mind, not all the things out there that I've been kind of hypnotized up until that point. So as a part of that, we also, both me and my wife Maria, we went back to study psychology. So I become a licensed psychologist about 10 years ago. So I also work with people individually in therapy. I've been working with companies and training leaders and employees at companies in mindfulness and mind training and compassion. And I'm really involved in trying to bring these kind of practices into schools and that kind of thing. So my focus for the last 20 years has been a lot about how you can bring Buddhist Dharma into a secular context, what Lama Yeshe called universal education, what his holiness called secular ethics. So there's so many amazing methods there, but sometimes people are not comfortable. Everyone's not a Buddhist, and everyone shouldn't be a Buddhist, I think. So just finding ways of communicating beyond what can be restrictive when it feels too religious or too ritualistic or whatever it is. Just finding ways of bringing things like mindfulness meditation, for example, out into the world has been kind of my focus. And yeah, I'm also leading Buddhist retreats. I've written books, blah blah, and I think what just happens is what happens when you don't prepare. So I wasn't prepared to give an introduction of myself. So the result of that is a bit of rambling. So, but anyways, that is me. Um,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, very good lead in, actually.
yeah,
Very privileged to have you. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, but So the topic of this four-part course is obviously shamatha, or I guess you could call that, in a sense, you could call that mindfulness meditation, but from not as it's been understood maybe in Western psychology, but as it's been taught within Buddhism. And yeah, I think um, I'm just gonna start first of all with a bit of shamatha or a bit of mindfulness meditation, just as the actual lead in, just a way to center our minds and to just bring our attention to where we are right now. So,
And it might be good if we all muted ourselves for that.
yes, that's always good. And yes, I will start. I will do most of the talking initially, anyways, and then I will invite questions and comments a little later. So muting ourselves is a great idea. But just as a way of arriving and coming home to our own experience, I would invite you to um, sit in a way that's comfortable. Maybe close your eyes and then allow your attention to drop down from the head, from this incessant thinking, planning, fixing that we spend so much of our lives engaged in. So just becoming aware of being embodied, allowing our attention to fill this entire field of tactile sensations, this field of experience upon which we label body. Maybe just noticing the movement of the breath. See if you can be really curious about all the sensations associated with the breathing. How does it actually feel to breathe in, to breathe out? And just gently notice the tendency of the mind to generate thoughts, mental images, impulses, to go into the past, project into the future. Mm. None of that's relevant right now, so just gently release those thoughts, whatever they are, and bring your attention back to the breath. And then just gently releasing your attention to the breathing, noticing the state of your body, the state of your mind, and then within your mind, allowing um, an intention to arise. Gently turning towards the reason for you joining this online course. So, looking a bit deeper at the question, why am I here? And part of that might be to um, learn and practice ways to deal with a turbulent mind, all these crazy thoughts and emotions that tend to sometimes torment us and make our lives a bit more difficult than it seems like it should have to be. Finding inner calm, peace, stillness, balance, clarity. But also, maybe not doing that just for our own benefit, but also with the motivation, the intention to be of benefit to others, to serve others as best we can with kindness and wisdom. And if we're Buddhists, this ultimate goal of enlightenment or awakening, the ultimate goal of cultivating bodhicitta, the fully open heart, all those goals and ideals, they start with the cultivation of um, the mind. None of it can happen with a chaotic and conflicted and scattered and unbalanced mind. So hopefully this course can be a way of exploring methods to cultivate the very qualities we need to embark on that path, to discover our own fullest potential, to deal with our own suffering, and also help others to do that as well. Okay, and then um, with that, we can end this little um, shamatha practice. So I realized that um, throughout this course, I probably am going to use the term shamatha and mindfulness a bit interchangeably. Um, they don't necessarily overlap completely, and mindfulness from the Buddhist perspective can mean both um, more of insight practice or what's called vipassana practice, the types of practices that really liberate the mind and generate insight into the nature of the mind, into the nature of reality. Or mindfulness can simply mean the cultivation of an attention that is clear and stable and and relaxed. So mindfulness in just translated into Buddhist context could mean either of those. But for this course, I think that I will be using the term shamatha, which I'll get to defining, and mindfulness kind of interchangeably. So this whole me teaching these 4 sessions, it actually came about when I was teaching a course on mental factors. So we're looking into all the stuff that goes on inside the mind and looking at things that are wholesome and beneficial and worthy of cultivation, and looking at things that are unwholesome and not very helpful, and the kind of things that we want to lessen or transform, or maybe even eventually get rid of. But what came up in that course was that it's quite a different job, or sorry, quite a difficult job to be doing with a mind that is not really serviceable. And we all suffer from minds that are extremely scattered and frantic and kind of all over the place. At least I do. And I think looking around at my fellow human beings in this world, I don't think I'm alone. Yeah, I can't know for sure, but it seems like our entire world and everyone in it is plagued by minds that are not really under our control. They're just kind of all over the place. So, so from that perspective, the shamatha practice is about cultivating a mind that is serviceable, that does whatever you want it to do and doesn't um, do a lot of things on its own that we didn't ask it to do. This is, I don't remember which Buddhist teacher, it's a Theravada teacher, who wrote a book called Who Ordered This Shitload of Dung? And that's, you know, can be our experience of our minds. It just dishes up things that are completely useful, or sorry, completely useless, and sometimes even just harmful to ourselves. It just comes up with all this stuff that just creates suffering for us, and we're not seeing uh, ourselves clearly. We're not seeing the world clearly. We're projecting onto the world things that aren't really there, and we're missing things that are very evidently there. So we get in a lot of trouble because we have this mind that just generates random thoughts, like this obsessive compulsive thinking disorder. That's not a technical psychological term, but that's kind of what it feels like. Um, so the whole goal of Buddhist practice is, of course, to understand the very nature of our suffering, to understand the causes of that suffering, but also understand the full potential of our minds to be free of that suffering, the full potential of our mind to experience happiness or well-being that is stable and reliable, not fickle, and to have this capacity to reduce the things that create that suffering and to enhance the things that are the causes for that happiness. So ultimately, the 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 practice or the meditation practice that is going to help us do that, it's called vipassana, and sometimes translated as insight meditation, or so this is the cultivation to gain insight into ourselves and our world of experience. And the etymology of vipassana is V means higher or superior, and Pashana means to see or to have insight. Um, and this is in meditation, we go from um, having this intellectual understanding of things like the Four Noble Truths or emptiness or the three marks of existence, things like dissatisfaction, impermanence, no self. Um, there are all these different ways of understanding intellectually what we're trying to achieve. Um, and then meditation becomes a way of turning that into an actual experience, to seeing directly in our own experience the reality or the truth of these things. So then that meditation can then lead to realization or insight, where these things kind of drop from the head into the heart or the stomach or whatever whatever the correct metaphor would be, but uh, to a point where our very perception of reality changes, so it's more in line with how things actually are. So our experience of reality is one of interconnectedness, for example, rather than seeing ourselves as separate. But also the realization of the amazing qualities like love and compassion, having clarity and developing generosity and so on and so forth. So those are the actual that's the actual point of Buddhist practice, and it comes through vipassana meditation. But in order to be able to do any of that, we need to have a mind that is actually, like I said, useful and serviceable. So that's where shamatha comes in, and the word shamatha, the etymology of that is, so shama means calm or still, and ta means to abide, to be in a state of. So it's often translated as calm abiding, and this is the prerequisite. So before we can really practice vipassana meditation or insight meditation in a way that's going to be transformative. I mean, we can start right now, but if we have a mind that's a bit all over the place, the quality of that meditation will be, in correlation to the quality of the mind we're bringing to it. So the the point of shamatha meditation in Buddhism is to cultivate a mind that is just suffused with the qualities of relaxation, of stability, and of clarity. I think that pretty much summarizes it. And maybe I should say here also, so this is, so sometimes it's called concentration meditation or focus meditation, which is true. It is, when you reach the end point of, when you actualize shamatha, as the term would be, then you have a mind that is completely concentrated, completely focused. That can be, whatever you place your mind on, whatever the object is, it can stay there without uh, moving at all. So when you're at that state, the mind only experiences the object of meditation. There is nothing else. All the sensory experiences have subsided. You're just resting in this luminous, clear, stable experience where the concentration is so complete, the absorption is so complete that there's nothing else, and you can stay there for literally days on end. So somewhere, sometimes, and I'll go into this a bit later, but there are 9 stages to achieving shamatha, and I think it's stage 4, stage 5, where your attention is now so stable that, as His Holiness says, you can stay on the object of meditation for 4 hours without any problem. So then, when you can do that, you're kind of, halfway there, and to our mind, this just seems utterly ridiculous. And And from the perspective of Western psychology, nothing like this is even recognized, or we just don't think something like that exists. We don't think that's the capacity of a human mind to do anything like that. But my point here is that when we hear concentration and focus, a lot of times we associate that with, you know, clamping down and, oh, I gotta finish my taxes or whatever. I have to listen to this lecture now. Or, oh, I'm a air traffic controller, and if I don't, really pay attention, planes are gonna fall out of the sky. So, but the thing is, the concentration and focus comes with a really strong effort, and then we go like that a whole day. We focus, focus, and then we just crash in the evening. That's when we, you know, crash on the couch and watch some Netflix, and um, so we kind of bounce between these polarized extremes of really trying to focus and getting things done, and then just crashing. And we call the crashing, we call that relaxing most of the time, but it's from a Buddhist perspective, this is a very unstable mind. So the first thing we have to really understand, and I find this is so important for like us Westerners or us people of modernity, is that we should approach this thing from the perspective of um, I don't know, letting go and releasing and relaxing rather than trying really hard. When I first got into when I did like my first long retreat, like a 10-day um, meditation retreat, I was I could do all the meditations, and I'm gonna get really quickly to this enlightenment stuff, and but there was so much effort there, and that I found that can certainly work to an extent, but at a certain point it just becomes unsustainable and untenable. So what we really need to do is approach this whole project with just a lot of kindness and softness and openness to our own experience. So trying to stay curious and allowing our experience to be what it is, not trying to force or push. Not It's not about whacking ourselves over the head with a stick, which is the strategy that many of us have to get things done. We're harsh to ourselves, we're unkind, and we just, you need to push on and get this done and so on. So, but the strategy here should be like the absolute opposite of that. Because if we're trying to cultivate true stability, true focus, true concentration, that can only come from a mind that is thoroughly relaxed. So actually, the more we can relax, the more we can let go, the more stable our attention can become. Not because we force it to be stable, but because we just gently cultivate this deeper and deeper relaxation, while at the same time maintaining these qualities of stability, of non-distractedness, and while simultaneously maintaining the quality of clarity, of not being dull or spaced out. So it's like this high resolution awareness that is very stable, but at the very foundation of all of that is this utter relaxation. So a lot of in the beginning, the trick is to find so we can trust that leaning into that relaxation and letting go and releasing is actually the way that we can stabilize our attention more and more. Because we think that anything worth doing requires a lot of effort. And also, if you look at some traditional Buddhist texts, there is these metaphors of, clamp down on your attention. Like I don't remember. I think there's one like overpowering uh, another person. So like really hold your attention. And I think, if you're a Tibetan, um, Tibetan 1500 years ago, I think their minds were already pretty relaxed because there wasn't much going on. So sometimes I think they may need those instructions that is about, trying a bit harder, but we don't need that because we're trying too hard already with everything. And it's just so much, and we're just exhausted all the time from trying, running. So I think the medicine that we need is more being more compassionate to ourselves, being more soft to ourselves, emphasizing really relaxation and this capacity to just let go and rest um, and just stop, nothing to do really. You just um, stay with your experience and cultivate curiosity and openness and a lot of the things we'll be talking about will follow as a natural progression on that, not because we're exerting a lot of effort or trying really hard, but sometimes it's more about doing less rather than doing more. So I just wanted that's a bit of front loading there, but I just wanted to start with that because once you start talking about concentration and focus and so on, it's so easy for us to hear that as an invitation to do what we always done, and that achieving kind of mind is activated, and we see all the things that are wrong with us, and then we get in kind of a state of mind that's not really helpful. Um, yeah. So then, um, so the shamatha meditation, or as I said, what I would be calling mindfulness meditation, the Buddhist word there is sati, which simply means to remember. So um, again, in Western psychology, there are um, maybe other definitions of mindfulness, but from the Buddhist perspective, that's it. It's about remembering, and specifically remembering the object of meditation. So, for example, if we bring our attention to the breath, then our job in meditation is to cultivate a stable attention to the breath and not forget. So remember our object. And if we get distracted, if our attention is pulled away, we release that and then we come back to the selected object of attention. And by doing that over and over again, um, that's how we cultivate an attention that is more stable. And interestingly, as we in the West, as we've been able to look at our brains in fMRI scanners and so on, you can really see the strengthening of areas in the brain that we know are related to attention regulation, but also emotional regulation. And you can see that they just physically um, get bigger and they get more active. So it's really, it is a type of training. If I go to the gym and I do biceps curls or whatever, I'm gonna start building my bicep muscle, and with every repetition, that muscle will get stronger. And that metaphor is really, or analogies is really strong because that's the same thing with our attention. Every time we become aware of a distraction, every time we intentionally bring our attention back, we are literally, creating new neural pathways in our brains that are related to um, attentional control or our ability to direct our attention. So yeah, and the Buddhist word for meditation is bhavana, which just means to cultivate. So it's so the the practice of meditation is training in one sense, and the more we train, the better we get at whatever we are training or cultivating. So there is this direct effect of cultivating an attention that is more stable and more strong. But then, and that's common now actually to a lot of things that happens in the West and the use of mindfulness in more and more settings. Like I said, I worked for many years teaching mindfulness at corporations, and the recognition that the cultivation of a mind, or as a in a Western context, it would be a brain because they don't really acknowledge the existence of a mind beside the brain. So it would be cultivation of certain qualities in the brain, but seeing that they can be really helpful regardless of whether you're trying to do your job well or you're engaged in a meaningful conversation with someone, or you're doing your favorite pastime, or you're playing sports, whatever it is. If you can bring to that activity a mind that is relaxed and stable and clear, and attention that is able to stay fully present, fully aware, then whatever the activity is, then you're going to perform better and it's going to be more enjoyable and so on. The There was a guy, he's sometimes called the father of modern psychology. His name is William James, and in 1890 he published a book called Principles of Psychology. And in this book, he talked a lot about attention and how important attention is for learning and for enjoyment and so on. And there's this really interesting quote, and I'll just read it because I find it fascinating. So William James writes, the faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character, and will. An education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence. So judgment, character, and will all depends on not having a wandering attention, on having focus and concentration. And if this could be, if you could bring this to people through education, that would be the best possible education, is what he's saying, the education par excellence. But then he concludes, but it's easier to define this ideal than to give practical directions for bringing it about. So he said, this would be really good to have, but we have no idea on how to cultivate it or train it or teach it. And this was, what, 130 years ago or so. And yeah, Western psychology did not have any methods to cultivate these things. And, over the past 50 years, those methods has kind of been brought in from Buddhist meditation practice into the West. And so much science and so many studies and so many beneficial effects have been um, discovered. But one of the problems, though, is that when that happened, a lot of the Buddhist context that kind of embeds or into which shamatha practice is embedded has been lost. So, and that context is things like ethics. Um, we started this session with cultivating beneficial, wholesome intention, and Buddhism has always emphasized the importance of having goals and aspirations and you know, wishes that are wholesome and helpful for ourselves and others. And that's really what ethics is. But when mindfulness meditation was transferred into the context of Western psychology, a lot of that was lost. And also the very purpose of cultivating this stable attention, which in Buddhism is to become aware of all the stuff that's happening in our minds and really paying attention to what mental states are wholesome, what mental states are not helpful, and using this tool to really observe the mind so that we can direct it in a helpful direction or cultivate the things that are useful to ourselves and others. That also got kind of lost. So I just wanted to share another definition of mindfulness, which comes from Nagasena, who's second century, I believe, Buddhist master. And Nagasena says, mindfulness, when it arises, calls to mind wholesome and unwholesome tendencies, with faults and faultless, inferior and refined, dark and pure, together with their counterparts. Mindfulness, when it arises, follows the course of beneficial and unbeneficial tendencies. These tendencies are unbeneficial. These tendencies are helpful, these unhelpful. Thus, one who practices mindfulness rejects unbeneficial tendencies and cultivates beneficial tendencies. So, um, so ultimately, that is the point of mindfulness practice or shamatha practice, to cultivate the mind that has that ability. Um, and I'll um, I'll share another quote just because I had it under the one I just shared. But this one is interesting because um, it also illustrates from a Buddhist perspective what the full capacity of the mind that has cultivated shamatha actually is. So this is from a text called the Vajra Essence, and the quote is, "O Vajra of mind, the rope of mindfulness and firmly maintained attention is dissolved by the power of meditative experience, until finally the ordinary mind of an ordinary being disappears, as it were. Consequently, compulsive thinking subsides and roving thoughts vanish into the space of awareness." So the cultivation again of this practice is a mind that can be completely free of all these tormenting thoughts and all these uncontrolled things that happen in the mind. That is the potential, but again, that's not even in Western mindfulness. Obviously, that isn't even recognized as a potential at all. So I guess we'll have to wait until we have meditation masters that come from Western secular concept or context, and where we can study these things, not in Tibetan yogis, but actually Western practitioners. I think that's when science is going to take it as a possibility, and acknowledge that it's the potential of the mind. But that's a bit of a tangent. Um, yeah, so I guess that's a bit of an introduction. From here, I thought we could go into a bit about the actual practice. Okay, so how do we train these amazing qualities of our minds, and what are the methods to do that, and go into a little bit of actual shamatha meditation. But before we do that, I thought I would pause and see if there are any questions, comments, etc. Um, before I before I continue my rant. So what do you say? Does it make sense so far? Oops. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
yes.
All right.
There we go.
So I just want to comment, and you alluded to this, and I find this is indeed one of my biggest impediments. I spend a fair amount of time getting frustrated with myself when I lose shamatha.
Hmm.
That inner dialogue, that criticism, I wish I could let go of it, but I struggle with that. And
Yeah.
that's like a distraction, like dumping on myself for not being able to do it means I'm spending less time actually doing it. So that's
Yeah.
just my little observation about how it's gone for me.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And um, thank you for sharing that. And that's um, what I try to preface this whole session with, because that is um, that frustration, and it's such a common experience when people try to practice shamatha. And I hear so often that people say, I can't practice shamatha because, whenever I sit down, this happens, and then I get frustrated and angry with myself. And um, yeah, so there is so in conjunction with the cultivation of shamatha, a lot of us really need the cultivation of um, kindness towards ourselves. So, what's commonly called self-compassion these days, but just bringing more acceptance and more or less judgment to our own experience, and being softer and kinder to ourselves. That's that's where we kind of need to start, and really emphasizing relaxation. So it doesn't, just because there is a lot of thought doesn't mean that our shamatha practice isn't effective. In fact, if you look at the traditional text, what they teach is that as we progress along these 9 stages of shamatha, that is just going to get worse, actually. So there will be more thoughts, and one of the practices that I really, and like myself, is a practice where you visualize thoughts as kind of a waterfall. So you're sitting atop of a waterfall, and just there are all these thoughts just pouring forth, but you don't cling to them, and you don't try to do anything with them. You just watch them kind of, fall off a cliff, and you release everything. But there is still this just torrent of stuff, and it seems like the deeper we dredge our minds, the more of this stuff tends to come out. So don't be disheartened if the mind isn't absolutely quiet and still when we try to do these things. It's really unrealistic to expect that. And yeah, so we need to realize that um, this crazy mind will be with us for a long time, even along the stages of shamatha practice. And we need to be really kind and friendly and supportive of ourselves in that um, process. And even, if we can even sit down for 5 minutes and just allow for the mind to settle a little bit and just have this sense of releasing and relaxing, coming home to our own experience. And then the thoughts are there, but they can be there. That's fine. We just come back to our immediate experience and rest there for just a few moments. Even if we can do that, that's amazing, you know. Um, and then we slowly build on that. We try to have a what do you call it? A consistent practice where we do a little bit of this every day, and it becomes part of our daily routine. And maybe sometimes throughout the day we can catch ourselves when we're stressed in the car, or we're stressed, you know, queuing at the grocery store or whatever it is, and then we can do this. We can just bring our attention back, and then start with these like little small islands of mindfulness that can over time become a bit more continuous, but throughout that process, just being really supportive and friendly to ourselves. I think that can be you know a realistic way of doing it. Yeah, hopefully that makes some sense.
Definitely. Yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned that you worked um, uh, in corporate environments with
Yeah.
men. Um, what what draws management to this practice, and what are the and what are the benefits that they take out of hearing you and what you're doing. Um, I'd be curious to hear something very brief about that.
Yeah, I mean, that really depends on the manager, or the leaders of that company sometimes. And which this is one of the reasons I don't do this anymore, is that sometimes they realize that this can be a way of just boosting productivity. And it's like, there's this deep caching wound, but we put some band-aid on it, and it can carry on like we did before. So it just becomes a way of fixing something that is fundamentally broken. And that's unfortunate. But that also ties into what I said, when you lose like the context of uh, this practice. If you don't complement it with loving kindness and compassion and equanimity and so on, it just uh, yeah, it's not really that helpful. But sometimes, some managers actually realize that this can be a way of addressing the stress and the anxiety and the burnout, and also sometimes the lack of purpose or authenticity, or those kind of things. So if they really have a genuine interest in fostering those things and helping people to cultivate those things, then there really isn't no way around mindfulness, because you can't really effectively do that without the foundation of an attention that is workable. So sometimes you find the occasional manager who has a bit of a deeper vision for why do this in the first place. So you have the whole range from pretty cynical to actually well-meaning. Yeah, something like that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we go into the actual practice. Right. So let's see. Um, yeah, so this is a really short course with 4 sessions. So I guess we won't. I mean, you can spend obviously years on each aspect of all of this, but the meditations we will be doing to cultivate, this relaxed, stable, and clear mind are. So this today we're going to use the breath, and that's going to carry into the next session as well. So the object of meditation today will be the breathing, and specifically just the full breath, like a full body experience of the breathing. And so there are two qualities that we're cultivating here from the perspective of Buddhist psychology, and one is the quality that's called mindfulness, which is like I said, the faculty of sustaining voluntary attention continuously upon an object, and usually they have the qualifier of familiar object there as well, but doing so without forgetfulness and without distraction. So I intend to put my intention on the breath, and then there will be distraction, thoughts and memories and impulses and mental images and sounds and pain in the body, all sorts of things that will pull my attention away. But mindfulness is that quality of maintaining that continuous flow of attention. But then the other quality that's important here is what's called introspection. So introspection is the faculty of monitoring the mind, recognizing when we've lost the object, but also recognizing when there is excitation or laxity, which are the traditional terms, which we will talk about more next session. But so uh, if there's too much excitation, or if there's too much dullness, laxity, like how can we work with that? So introspection is the faculty of mind that it's kind of like the quality control, or like the aspect of our mind that's is monitoring what's going on. So in these meditations, we're strengthening both those qualities of mindfulness um, and introspection. Um, and as I mentioned, we want to also cultivate these three qualities of relaxation, which is how we overcome tension, both like physical tension, but also mental tension. Um, and then the second quality is um, stability, of having a really stable mind, as I said, which overcomes distraction and mind wandering, our tendency to be scattered. And then the third one being clarity, which is how we overcome, you know, dullness or fogginess. Sometimes we get into a state when there might be it might be very stable. Not it's very dull, and it's very yeah. There's no clarity. There's no wakefulness. There's no alertness there. It's just kind of zoning out, which is not mindfulness meditation or shamatha at all. And yeah, sometimes people can get stuck for years just zoning out and thinking they're doing, making great progress, but they're just again zoning out, so not very helpful. All right, so So we'll do this meditation now, and we'll be using the breath as the object, and we will be emphasizing again this quality of relaxation. So um, this this type of meditation, the Buddha basically taught four postures. So one is sitting, as we very familiar. That's when you say meditating, people usually think of someone seated in the lotus posture. But you can sit on a chair, but you can also lie down, for example. That's an excellent position that the Buddha taught. It's difficult in the context of an online course like this uh, to lie down. But if you prefer that, and if you can lay yourself down while still following following my instructions, then you're more than welcome to do so, because it's actually a very helpful uh, way of practicing, specifically if we want to emphasize relaxation. But if we do sit up, it's good to have a back that's straight, but at the same time we uh, want it to be relaxed. So letting our shoulders come down, and just resting our hands where it feels comfortable. Eyes can be closed or they can be slightly open. Um, as we progress into other types of meditation, actually, we're often encouraged to keep our eyes open, but in the beginning, that can be a bit too distracting. So either way, open or closed. Um, and when it comes to focusing on the breath, we just want to allow the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. So we're not trying to control the breath in any way, like deep breathing or slow or anything like that. We're just using it as an object for our attention. So we place our attention on the breath, and then we just allow it to do its thing. And um, so we can say we're resting our attention on the rhythm of the breath in this practice, kind of like I don't know, like a piece of cork floating in the ocean, and just bobbing up and down with the waves, um, something like that. And um, as a lead into to the meditation, it's always um, good to set again like an intention for the practice, and just making um, just intentionally releasing whatever we've been engaged in that day, and all the things we're going to do tomorrow, all that stuff, just allowing our attention to come into the present moment. um, yes, and then the final thing I would say before we actually start this practice is, as you get distracted, which you will be, so we have this intention to focus on the breath, but then it doesn't take usually many seconds, and then off we go in some train of thought. So when you find that you've been distracted, see if you can take that as an opportunity to relax further. So first of all, this is a moment of mindfulness. Catching that distraction is not counter to the practice. It is the practice. So this is the introspection. Oh, I'm distracted, and then we gently release that distraction, and then we come back to the breathing again. So you can remember that as relax, release, and return. So that's how we want to respond to distractions as they arise. Okay, so let's initiate the actual practice of mindfulness of breathing, the shamatha practice of mindfully attending to the breath. So, like before, allowing your attention to drop down from the head. So imagine your attention filling your body like pouring water into a glass. And allowing yourself to be curious and open to the physical sensations in your body. And also releasing if there are any areas where you hold tension. So, for example, if you pay attention to your face, notice if you're holding tension in your face. Sometimes we have that little wrinkle between the eyebrows. So just allow your face to be soft and open, like the face of a sleeping baby. And so noticing if there are any areas in the body where there's some tension, and see if you can gently allow that to soften. Again, letting your shoulders drop, letting your belly be soft and open. Resting your hands where it feels comfortable. And then gently moving your attention to the breath, resting your attention on the movement of the breathing. Perhaps there's some place in the body where you experience this movement more prominently, like the belly rising and falling, or the chest rising and falling. So place your attention there and notice how it actually feels to breathe. And see if you can emphasize the out breath, because with the out breath, there is this natural release, natural letting go. So as you breathe out, emphasize relaxation, letting go, just effortlessly allowing the air to flow out of the body. Don't holding on, not holding on to anything. And as I said, if you find yourself caught in distractions, in one of the many, many thoughts, or being distracted by sound, whatever it is, just gently release it. You don't have to force it to go away, just release your attention from it. And then you take this opportunity to relax even further. And then you gently return your attention to the breath. Just paying attention to your breathing like it's the most important thing in the universe right now, which for you it actually might be. Just resting your attention on the breathing, relaxing, releasing with each out breath. And also, if you notice an area in your body where you're holding tension, sometimes we hold tension in the thighs, in the stomach, in the shoulders, in the back. So if you notice any area like that, as you breathe in, you can gently move your attention there with the in-breath. And again, as you breathe out, you allow that area to soften. And if there's that knot of tension that refuses to relax, then see if you can just relax and soften around it. So you breathe in, bring your attention to whatever is tight, and then as you breathe out, you soften, release, relax. And you can do the same thing with your mind. So if there's something that is tight, some thought that is charged or persistent, as you breathe in, just gently bring your attention to that mental tightness. And then as you breathe out, you allow it to soften, to relax, like release it into space. Breathing in, bringing your attention there. And then as you breathe out, gently releasing, relaxing. Okay, and then finally, towards the end of this meditation, just allow yourself to release all effort and for a few moments, just rest in your immediate experience with no agenda, releasing everything and resting. Okay, and then with that, we can end this meditation. If I did have a bell, I would ring it now, but I don't. Um, all right, so I will um, I will soon open up for if there are any concluding questions or comments. But before I do that, I just wanted to suggest kind of a daily practice, I guess. And I imagine a lot of you might already have a daily practice, but um, I would just, whether you do or not, I would suggest that maybe in the morning, as you start your day, then of course, always setting a good motivation. Um, may I show up in a way that will be of most benefit to others as much as I can, that sort of thing. But then starting with, you know, 15 minutes or even 10 or even 5 minutes of this mindfulness of breathing or this full body mindfulness of breathing meditation, just as a really nice way of starting the day, like a beautiful, soft way of cultivating the qualities that we hopefully will want to bring to that day. And then during the day, just see if we can pay attention. So, is there any agitation, any tension in my body or in my mind? And if we notice that there is, just use it can be just 3 breaths. So, we breathe in, notice this tension, and then we breathe out and relax and release around that. So this both fosters relaxation, but it also cultivates shamatha and this qualities of mindfulness. And see also throughout the day if we can have things that remind us of mindfulness. So one that I like is whenever my phone rings, um, there you always have a few. You have a few. It can ring for a while before you pick it up. So instead of just rushing into that call, you can take that opportunity to bring your mind back to the breath or just to your immediate experience. So cultivate some clarity, mindfulness, and then you pick the phone up, which makes for a very different phone call, I find. So just finding, or you brush your teeth in the morning, just whatever it is, finding these little triggers throughout the day that brings you back to mindfulness and brings you back to your shamatha to practice. And then the the final thing I would say is it can be a really nice way to end the day in the lying down position, in the shavasana position, and doing this type of mindfulness or breathing meditation, also as a way of releasing thoughts and worries and kind of having a um, nice segue into sleep. And I'll talk a bit more about that next time because there are some challenges with combining the practice of alertness and clarity with falling asleep, but don't have the time to go into that now. So anyway, so yeah, just morning, during the day, and in the evening, bringing this practice to mind and using it every moment as a potential way of. Yeah, I guess we can end there. Um, I hopefully um, the fact that there weren't that many questions means that everything was crystal clear. Um, but if that wasn't the case, I will see you in a week to clarify whatever comes up. And yeah, I wish you a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much, everyone.